Good morning. Welcome to the training webinar for this Thursday. I'm Dale Franks. Today we are going to talk about workspaces and dashboards. I have done this before, and a lot of this information is going to be a repeat of what I did on the same webinar last year. I do have a couple of other ideas that I want to throw at you, and ideas that are more related to managing workspaces and dashboards and importing them. But still, we are going to cover all of the basics of workspaces and dashboards today. So for those of you who want a little more advanced information, I'm afraid you're going to have to stay with me. I will sprinkle that in throughout the presentation today. With all that in mind, let's get started, and let me share my screen with you. The workspace and the dashboard serve very similar purposes. I don't want to talk about dashboards much yet. Dashboards are largely a replacement for a workspace. And what a workspace allows you to do is it enables you to create a unique UI for certain classes of users. When Process Director is first installed, you have two workspaces that are just there automatically. One workspace is called the admin profile. As you can see, for me, the admin profile takes me directly to the homepage of the IT admin area. And the second one is the user profile, which is largely a demonstration workspace. I have modified mine so that it shows me a couple of different things than you generally see. And I would not recommend that you use the built-in user profile workspace unedited whenever you first install Process Director. You do need to at least edit that workspace, because I think some of the things that we give you by default, you have to understand, we don't know what your system is going to look like and who's going to be using it and who's going to have access to it. So what we provide as a default is a very generic workspace. And in this case, I think it's fair to say that this workspace is not the default that we give you. It's probably a little more useful. I've replaced some of the default items with items that I find more useful, certainly for the webinars. And I'd recommend that you make some changes to that default workspace, because, like I said, it's super generic. But all of the workspaces, at least in 6.1, are accessible via the workspaces menu if you are in the older version of Process Director, which I might as well just bring up. We have plenty of time today, I think, to cover all of this. So I have a legacy version of Process Director running version 5. And we'll go ahead and log into that one. The UI obviously is fairly different. The UI in version 5 dates from 2015, 2016. So it is a little bit dated at this point. But on the older versions of Process Director, this is what you see. At the very top of the screen, you just see this tab bar. As you can see here, I'm looking at the admin profile workspace, which on this particular server is set to show the content list by default. Here is the user profile workspace. This system was exported from my training system, the one we were looking at just a minute ago. So it has all of the same objects and basically the same configuration. So again, this is not the standard workspace. I think it might be interesting if we go over to the documentation server, and let me log in here. And we'll take a look at that. Whoa, I've got two-factor authentication enabled on this one. So hold on. I have to grab my phone and log into this particular server. My current token, 599189. That'll get me in. And on this machine, we can go to our admin profile. And not admin profile, user profile. I don't think that I have, I haven't edited it, I don't think, but this is not what we want to see. Excuse me, I'm going to have to go in and make a slight change to this workspace. So let me go to my user profile and set it back to default. We will use the desktop interface, but not yet. We'll take a look at that a little bit later. So let me update that. Let me swap back and forth. There we go. Now we're back to the traditional workspace. This is the default workspace that you get whenever you first install Process Director. These are the three portlets that appear in that workspace. The task list, okay, that's good. That's useful. You need to have a workspace with a task list. We'll talk about that in a minute. But by default, on the user profile workspace, you get forms I can submit. This is a built-in knowledge view that just pulls all of the form definitions on the system to which I, as an end user, have access. Obviously, as a system administrator on this machine, I have access to everything. So this is a relatively useless knowledge view for me because, as you can see, I have a ton of forms on this machine that I can submit, but of course I can submit anything because I'm the system administrator for this machine. In general, however, for an end user, if they're only allowed access to create and submit 5 forms, then they would only see 5 forms in this knowledge view. And then down at the bottom, there's a running processes knowledge view, which is not something I would generally give to end users. Again, this is one of the global knowledge views that are built into the system. It shows you all of the running processes that are running on this particular system. So these are all active process timelines that I have on this system. As an end user, probably not something I would want to see. So even though this is what you get as a default when you first install Process Director, it's not one that I would want to show to end users. What I want to show to end users, and we can go ahead and get out of the legacy machine. We're going to stay in version 6 for the rest of this. Just keep in mind that when I talk about the workspaces menu, if you're on version 5, it's this tab bar at the very, very top of the screen. We don't have that in the version 6 UI. So going back to the training server and taking a look at the default, as you can see, I've edited this to make it more useful for me. Now, because I'm system administrator, I have moved running processes up here. I do want to have access to my running processes as an administrator and as a process administrator on a machine. Even if I wasn't a system administrator, I might want to have the same level of access so that I could look at everything that's running on the server. I can open them up, take a look at them, see what's going on with them. I can cancel them from right here. So if I wanted to cancel that process, I certainly could. I'm not going to, but I certainly could if I wanted to. And at the bottom, I have a content list search, which is just a generic search that allows me to search the content list for specific objects by their name. This was useful in 5.44. In version 6, it's pretty much irrelevant because if I really need to search my content list, I can now do that in the content list itself. So it kind of deprecates the need to build your own content list search knowledge view. Although in a knowledge view, I do have the ability to export to CSV or export to Excel or run a process, things I can't do in the content list. But as a general proposition, I really don't need a content list search if I have version 6 because, well, I've already got that built into the content list in version 6 of the product. The point of the workspace is to give certain classes of users access to a specific UI that is relevant to them. As a system administrator, so this is one of those more advanced things. We're not really going to talk about workspaces themselves, but about workspace management. As a system administrator or even an implementer, you really do need to think carefully about the workspaces that you need to create. Now, on this particular system, I have 4 workspaces that I'm running right now. I've got, of course, the 2 original ones that come with Process Director. I have the UI sample workspace that we looked at 2 weeks ago in building an advanced UI. And this workspace actually incorporates a a dashboard that just shows a form, which we talked about how you would build that a few weeks ago. And I can do everything within this workspace that is related to these two requests, this HR request and IT request. That's cool. And then I have another workspace, which is my auto claims workspace, which is the case management sample that I usually use whenever I'm talking about case management. And it allows me to create new auto claims. And so I can do a new auto claim, or I can look up an existing auto claim and open it up in case context. And this is claim 005. So that's great. That's really useful. The question then becomes, if you're managing the system, you need to set up some sort of rule about when a workspace is necessary and when it is not necessary, or set up a system where it's more generic and doesn't have specific navigation. And that can be tough to do. The thing about a workspace is that not only does it give me access to a specific portion of the system and a specific UI that end users can see and work with on the system, it also gives me this list of navigation buttons up here at the very top that enables me to navigate to different parts of the system. So if I want to see my task list, there it is. If I want to see, I'm not sure what object list is or whether it works. I've got a sample form that I can open up. We don't really care about looking at that form. I've got a QA dashboard that I can open up that has a whole bunch of charts on it, which is kind of nice. Not sure why this chart is taking so long to generate, but there you go. And I've got a bug KView that I created. I'm not sure what that KView is, but this gives me access to different either forms or in this case, it's a dashboard or charts or all sorts of other objects. And that's why this whole workspace thing becomes a little bit complicated. There is a tendency among some developers, and I'm not saying whether this is a good or a bad tendency, it's just a thing that occurs, to make a new application and then to create a new workspace for that application. And that's fine, I suppose, in many cases, especially if it's something more complex and or it's case-based, right? If I have an auto claims case management application, I'm almost always going to need a dashboard for that application because there's a lot of moving parts to a case. So case management applications are an example of where it might be a good idea to create your own workspace for that case management applications. Now, in this case, it is a little more complex because I don't actually have any navigation. I don't have any other places to go from my case workspace. But again, this is a training workspace, so it's not a real world thing. All I really need is access to my existing claims and the ability to create a new auto claim. And that's fine. Do I need an entirely separate workspace for this? Or could I just stick this knowledge view that shows my list of claims and my button to create a new auto claim? Could I just stick that somewhere else in a different workspace? And so instead of creating a new claim from this button, maybe I would have in my workspace navigation menu, maybe in that case, I would just have a button that would open up a new claim. Gets really complex trying to figure that out because you have a couple of opposing, as a manager, you have a couple of opposing interests that you have to try to resolve. If I have a complex application, I may want to have it's a custom workspace for it. I might have a variety of knowledge views, a variety of forms and timelines that are associated with that complex application. For example, we have a customer that has a very, very complex ordering process for their the goods that they manufacture. There is an extraordinary amount of customization that you can implement. Each one of those customizations may kick off entirely separate processes. So I'm going to order widget A, and widget A needs to have, components 2, 4, and 8. And components 2, 4, and 8 are complex. They may include their own processes, and therefore I've got to kick off other processes. It's a very large case management application where I've got a main product that I can buy, and then they have like 20 or 30 different customization processes that it might go through. Okay, that's a big app. That might just need its own workspace to run and to make sense of it. At the same time, you have certain classes of users like IT workers or HR workers or facilities workers or warehouse workers, all of whom have a related suite of applications. For example, if you work in HR, you might have an application for employees to file a complaint or a grievance. You're going to want to have an application to request vacation. You're going to want to have an application to change their personal information, like their address or their marital status or whatever it may be. You might have another application for benefits questions. You might have an application for disciplinary procedures. So you've got these 5 or 6 or 8 different applications. Well, you don't want to have 8 different workspaces for 8 different applications. In a case like that, you might just want an HR workspace, and then you would have to construct that HR workspace in such a way as to ensure that all 8 of those applications are contained in it. So again, if we switch back over to the user profile workspace, that's where this navigation menu becomes important, because in a case like that where I have 8 different applications, what I might have in my workspace navigation menu are links to all 8 of the forms that might be submitted from that application, so that if a user wants to, do a complaint or whatever the form might be, if they want to submit it, they just click that button and it opens the appropriate form for them, which in this particular case just happens to be my accessibility and responsiveness form. Actually, it's just the accessibility form. So now this form can be opened, it can be submitted by the end user. And so all of my HR users might need access to a workspace like this that concatenates several applications into a single workspace. So it does become a little bit confusing in determining when you want to build a workspace at the application level and when you might just want to include several applications into a single workspace for a particular class of user. I don't really have any guidance for you on how that works. I will say that in the context of having a generic workspace, and it might be best to have a generic workspace, which again, we'll talk about in a second, so that I can drop in forms I submit, or I can submit into that workspace just to give them access to all of the forms to which they have the permissions to submit. In my case, as I said earlier, I've got a bunch of forms that I can submit. So for me personally, this is not a useful knowledge you, but for a regular user, and this is the other thing, each user may have different sets of forms they need to submit. And so it may not be possible to construct a generic workspace the way that we did with the HR workspace, where we had navigation buttons to 8 different forms notionally to just do HR tasks. For a general end user, you might not be able to create a workspace that has all of the forms in some sort of navigation bar that they might want to submit. So in a case like that, where you're just trying to create a generic workspace, maybe dropping in forms I can submit is important simply because different users are probably going to have access to different forms. They're going to be members of different groups. Different groups can submit different forms, presumably, depending on how you've set up your permissions methodology on your specific system. So this is a good catch-all knowledge view for end users who are not administrators. Obviously, for administrators, much less useful. If you have a generic workspace, which is what the user profile workspace is an example of, that gives you a couple of different advantages in that, first of all, it shows you your task list. That's super important. You have to have a workspace somewhere on the system where the user can access their task list. It's probably best if the task list is its own portlet in the workspace so that the user doesn't have to learn where to go or where to navigate to on the navigation bar. They just get faced with their task list when they open up the system. In fact, on some systems, a worker may only have access to that one generic workspace, in which case they wouldn't even see a workspaces menu. It just wouldn't appear in the UI for them. If all I had was access to the user profile workspace, I wouldn't see this menu, just as on version 5, you wouldn't see any tabs at the top of the screen for different workspaces because you're only a member of this workspace. So in that case, if I were to log onto the system, this would be the only UI that I have access to. And so it'd be very important to see what tasks have been assigned to me as soon as I open up the system so that I can open up those tasks and I can complete them right from the home page of my workspace, irrespective of whatever email notifications I may have been sent by these processes to assign these tasks to me. It's nice to be able to grab them from here. So for an end user on a regular system in a generic workspace, this might be super useful. So in the case of Process Director in the user profile workspace, all new users, well, by default, I think they are, but I may have it turned off on this system. But by default, all new users become part of the user profile workspace. So it's good to have that generic workspace available to end users. So even if so as soon as they create their account, they have access to a UI. So you'll need to do some soul searching, I think, in terms of how you want to create workspaces, what they should look like, what access different users are going to have to them, and whether you create workspaces at the application level or at the user class level. The best practice would probably be, whenever you can, to create workspaces at the level of user groups so that different groups of users, like HR, have access to their own HR workspace. That may be the only workspace, in fact, that they have access to, and that is fine. They just wouldn't see the generic workspace. But again, if you're going to give users only access to a workspace for a specific group, then at the very least, when you create that workspace, you are going to want to give them direct access to their task list. And so that is going to take up some screen space for those users. So you have to think carefully about what exactly you're going to show those end users in a group workspace. You're going to have to think very carefully about how you are going to configure that navigation menu and what you're going to give them access to by clicking on those navigation buttons that you have to configure at the top of the screen. If you're building something at the application level, that becomes a much simpler process. You simply don't have to show end users anything that doesn't relate to that application. However, you are going to have to provide access to that workspace for those users. You want to keep this drop-down list for each individual user as small as is necessary. It gets super confusing to the end user when I open up Process Director and I go look at my workspaces, and if I had 30 items in this menu, that'd be kind of tedious because I would constantly have to be switching off from one workspace to another. So again, that is another interest that you have to balance. What is the most efficient collection of workspaces that I can provide to my end user? Because at the end of the day, for us as administrators, we have this, we have all of these options for how we want to look at Process Director and all of the things that we can see, and we can do our own navigation. But that's not true for end users, certainly not on a production system. They don't have access to all this cool stuff, and they can't search the content list to find all of the things that they want to find in there. That's not available to them, or at least it shouldn't be for the end users. So the UI that you provide in that workspace or workspaces, that's all they have. That is their only method of accessing the system. So you have to think long and hard about what it is that you want your end users to see. So as an administrator, someone who is building a system, I think what I would primarily want to do when it comes to figuring out what my workspace architecture is, and this is something that we don't talk about a lot. I've certainly never talked about it a lot, although I am now. This idea of workspace architecture. How do I want my users to see the system when they log in, which you have limited control over, by the way? I'll explain why later. Do I want to give users a standard base UI in a workspace that gives them access to the most important things that they need, which is largely access to their task list and access to forms that they can submit? Those are the two things users need more than anything else in the world: their task list and the things that they can submit. And beyond that, how complicated do I want their user experience to be? One of the problems with giving people multiple workspaces is that you can't really define a home page for end users. As administrators, we have one, or we do with version 6.1, the home page that we saw a few minutes ago. End users don't have that. What end users are going to see is the workspace that they were looking at the last time they left the system. So if the last thing I was looking at when I left the system was auto claims, then the next time I log into Process Director, auto claims is the first thing I'm going to see. It's going to open me back up into the auto claims workspace. So we don't really have a redirect that is built in to take people to a home workspace. That is an argument for, to the extent that you can, it may not be a great argument, but it is at least an argument that to the extent you can, you really want to ensure that your end users have access to as few workspaces as possible, and ideally one workspace that gives them access to everything that they're going to need on a day-to-day basis. So if I'm only a member of the user profile workspace, then that's all I see. Now, the downside to that is that as you're building out this architecture, I now have to ensure that every end user, when they look at this workspace, because I'm kind of forcing them into this workspace, that everything that they see here is going to be useful to them, and it does not exclude anything that they need to see, that they're going to need to access on a regular basis, whether it's an application or whatever. The other problem, of course, is, so let's say, all right, well, fine, there's a lot of forms on here. I'd rather not give them forms I can submit. I'd rather just limit the forms, their access to forms, to whatever I configure up here. Okay, fine, not an invalid argument, but remember, my horizontal space in the user profile menu here is limited. And so if they start looking at this on a slightly narrower screen, I mean, for me right now, we're looking at this at 1920 by 1080. And if I really wanted to rock your world, we could look at my entire screen, which is a 32 or 34 inch widescreen monitor. I got plenty of real estate that I can throw stuff into on that monitor. And so I've got a ton of horizontal space that would allow me just to throw in a whole plethora of navigation buttons. But if I'm looking at this on a narrower screen, and I think, what is it? I think admin profile, was it? Okay, which is the one that has the biggest or the longest menu? Well, I actually am on the wrong system. So this is probably the one that has the largest horizontal menu. Let's make my screen smaller. In fact, let's make it smaller still. Yeah, see, now I'm back into mobile mode, and I've got this long drop down now that will list all of my workspaces, and it lists all of my buttons over here, all of my navigation buttons in this sort of drop down menu. So we're going to try to help you in terms of building a responsive menu. But you just have to realize that if I use up all of my horizontal space, I'm going to be stuck back here with this sort of menu kind of drop down, at least in version 6. It is, well, we're not going to look at version 5, but it's a bigger problem in version 5 than it is in version 6 in terms of screen size. You got to keep all of these things in mind. Building workspaces is kind of complex, and you need to have, to the extent that you can, you need to have some sort of plan about what workspaces are going to be on your system, especially after you first install it. And then you're going to need to have some criterion defined, at least in general, so that your implementers are aware of when it might be a good idea, based on your organization's needs, to create a new workspace at the application level, so that it's a workspace that only relates to a single, albeit perhaps highly complex application, or whether they can, when they're building a new application, implement it into an existing workspace. I will say, in terms of end user workspaces, being able to use the forms I can submit knowledge view is pretty useful. It's one thing to have 5 or 6, 7, maybe 8 forms on a normal system to see it normally, to display in the navigation bar. What if it's 12 or 15 or 20 forms that an end user can submit? At that point, it gets very difficult to shove all of those different navigation bars onto a single row. There are some ways around this. I mean, I could, if I wanted to, get 20 items here. I just couldn't show the text. I would have to only show the icon, and I would have to configure some tool tips that would be seen whenever users were navigating through the navigation bar, looking at the different buttons. It makes the UI harder to learn, however, because you're not explicitly telling them, this is what's going to open when you click this button. If I click this button, I'm fairly certain, based on the verbiage that I've included here, that it will display my task list for me. And when I click on that button, it's not displaying the task list. I'm not sure whether it's configured or not. I may not have any of these configured. It doesn't appear that I do on this particular server. So we'll go back to this one. Having 2 servers open is a little bit of a pain. We'll go back to this one, and we'll click on task list. And I'm fairly certain that when I do, this is what I'm going to see. I'm going to see my actual task list on the system. I can, of course, not show the verbiage here. Again, we'll talk about all that in a few minutes when we start configuring a workspace. I can simply show the icons. And if I show the icons, obviously it'll take up a lot less horizontal space on my navigation bar, which is great, but it's only going to show me the icon. You better be really good at displaying logical icons that are meaningful to the end user. And even if you are, it doesn't matter. The end user, ultimately, if I put 30 icons on this bar, the end user is going to have to ultimately learn what those 30 icons are. As you can see, I don't actually have any tool tips. Whenever we create a dash or a workspace, I'm going to create tool tips so that you can see how that they work in the UI. But I can give them tooltips, and the tooltips can obviously contain the text, and that's great. So that is helpful. But a lot of things to think about just in terms of when and how workspaces get configured. I think I got a little sidetracked. So let me go back to best practices. Best practice, have a generic workspace that every user has access to, so that at the very least, when they log onto the system, they have access to some user interface that's useful to them. If you're not a member of any workspace, you don't see anything in Process Director except a message that says you're not a member of a workspace. That's not useful. So they need to have something. Number two, use group level or functional level workspaces where you can. Number three, use application level workspaces if you must. The general rule to follow, which I would put in as number four, is provide access to as few workspaces as necessary for your end users so that they don't have a 30 workspace menu that they have to try to figure out what workspace they have to go to do a specific thing. Because you're just adding on layers of complexity to the UI. So with all that in mind about workspaces, now we can kind of pull back and get into some more detail about the actual workspace configuration itself. So we'll go to configuration, and we'll just start off by creating a new workspace. I just want to be sure I did delete the webinar workspace, so now I can recreate it. So in my IT admin area, settings, I go to configuration. The home page of the configuration section of IT admin is the workspaces page. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new workspace here. And I will once again call it webinar. And as a best practice, you should always have a description for each of your workspaces. This is a demo workspace. And then we'll hit OK. Now I can start configuring the workspace itself. This is an important property. New users added to the system should be automatically added to this workspace. There is, or should be, at least one workspace on your system that has this setting turned on. That should be your base or default workspace that you're going to give to every end user on the system. If you're going to do that, how that workspace should appear is something you need to consider. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. For every other workspace, you probably want this turned off, because what you're going to do is assign users to that workspace, generally on a per group basis, so that they can access it. Turning this on means that you don't have to assign anyone to this workspace. Process Director, as soon as someone's user account is created, will automatically add them to this workspace. Essentially, this workspace is assigned to the all authenticated users group. And so everyone who has an authenticated account in Process Director can see this workspace. So if we were configuring this, this would be our generic workspace that we would want to build. We're going to treat this as a generic workspace, and then we're going to figure out what it is that we need to show users in this particular workspace. Use desktop interface for workspace gives you access to a different look to the traditional workspace. And I'm going to have to hit OK here. We're going to stop that. We'll come back to it in a minute. And we'll go back to the user profile workspace. In the user profile workspace, so let me just switch to that workspace quickly. Workspaces have two main components. The first component is the navigation bar. So this is the workspace navigation menu. I'm not sure why there's not a name here. It's probably due to my configuration, but the navigation menu is where you provide clickable links or buttons that will open up any object that you want them to open in Process Directory. It could be a form, it could be a report, it could be a knowledge view, whatever. You give them access to that. And then you have the home page configuration. On a standard workspace, I can have from 1 to 4 little windows that we call portlets in the workspace. In a normal workspace, we still have this, and I kind of hate to say it, but this kind of Windows 3.11 workspace divider here with these little divider bars that allow me to basically close and reopen different portlets in the workspace. And depending on which of these buttons I click, it's going to open up. So we have these divider bars. I can also change these divider bars a little bit. However, when I refresh this workspace, whatever change I've made to the divider bars is all going to go away, and it's always going to reset. Every time I open this workspace or every time I refresh this page, it's always going to reset it to this default sizing and configuration. I don't particularly like the look of this because to me it looks old, although I suppose we could change the look of it slightly to make it flatter and get rid of this 3D look, but I'm not a big fan of this particular type of segregating off different portlets. I'm not sure what a better UI would be, but this is an old UI convention that's been around since Windows 3.11. And it's something we have to live with in a normal workspace portlet. And I can't customize it. Like I said, every time I refresh this page, this is what I'm going to see. It's not customizable in any way, shape, or form. All right, well, what if I don't want to see it like this? Well, the desktop workspace is the answer to that. So now we can go back and look at our webinar workspace again. If I turn this on, it's going to give me a different user interface. In fact, it's probably best if I don't turn this on. It's probably best, since I already have it built and we can look at it, it's probably best if I actually go back to the user profile workspace. This was turned on earlier, and I'm going to return it on. And this desktop user interface gives me a different view of workspaces. I think a much more modern view of workspaces on the system. I know I changed it. Did I update it? No, I certainly did now. So now I should be able to go back to my user profile workspace. And I'm going to see something a little bit different. In fact, every user is going to see something a little bit different. Initially, and let me make this change here. Oh, I don't like the fact that I can't read that. Why not edit, reset my workspace? Okay, so this is how the workspace looks for the user profile. Well, it's supposed to look like this. I have saved my workspace with a different look, but this is how it's supposed to look. So the first time an end user opens up the workspace, this is what they'll see. The advantage to this particular style of workspace, the desktop interface for this workspace, is that it does allow me as an end user to customize my workspace settings a little bit. That's not what I wanted to do, but I can change the size of things so that I have things arranged in a different way. And this workspace is going to, let's open up my edit profile screen. Let's just drop that down here so that I have a little different workspace. Now, I'm limited with this type of workspace in what I can access. I can only access items that are part of the navigation bar. As you can see, for whatever reason, I don't appear to have anything configured in the navigation bar. So the number of items I can open is really small, just the predefined items. and my user profile. But now this is customized to me. This is not going to refresh. It's not going to change. It's not going to go back and overwrite my settings. It enables me to perform some customization here. Since I've clearly got this messed up here, let's actually go back over here to this system. It's nice having two different systems, although I'm always sort of touchy about working on the documentation system because it definitely is a cutting edge system. But we're going to go ahead and turn on our desktop user interface here on this system, and we're going to go back to our user profile workspace. And it looks like I have customized it just a little bit. And for me, now the only things that I have access to in this workspace are the items that are in the navigation bar. So I do have some limitations in the amount of customization that I can do. So all of these items are available to me and I can move them around. So what do we have here? We have all knowledge views and reports. Well, you know what? I don't think I need to see that. So I can turn that off. What do I have locked under there? I've clearly messed around with this a little bit. I've got the content list, not really necessary in version 6 to be able to access the content list. So I can turn that off and I can give myself a workspace that is more useful to my personal needs as an end user. So the desktop interface does at least enable me to do a little bit of customization. It also allows me to arrange my windows, which is kind of cool. Does that for me automatically. I'm still not happy with the background colors on that UI. It looks like something we're going to need to look into. There is also, and I forget how to do it in version 6. I know how to do it in version 5, but I'm not entirely sure how to do it in version 6. I know it's accessible. I've just forgotten how to access it in version 6. Is it in user profile? I don't remember where it is, but I have a limited number of items I can access in this workspace, even when it's set to the desktop interface. I do have the ability to customize it and to show everything that I have access to in that workspace. So basically, I have access to all of the objects that are configured on the home page and all of the objects that are included in the navigation menu for the workspace. Those are the only objects I have access to, but I have access to all of them. And I can display any of them anywhere that I want to display them on this page. So I can customize this at the user level as an end user to show those things that I find most useful to me. Now, the only things that I have access to, as I said, are the items that are in the top navigation button. So I've got my home page, my content list, as we saw a minute ago, my task list, my knowledge views. Well, the log off button obviously is built into the user profile menu. And then the homepage windows that are defined here, the task list, forms I can submit, running processes. Those are the only things I can access, but I can access all of them at any time, and I can display them all at any time in the desktop workspace simply by customizing it myself. And when I customize it myself, I have my own unique UI. So that is an advantage of this workspace. The disadvantage is that you don't know exactly how users have configured their own workspaces. And so you don't really know what the user's actually seeing when they open up Process Director. On a day-to-day, that's not a problem. If you're trying to do any sort of tech support for end users, it does become a little bit of a problem because when you tell them, okay, look on the upper left-hand side of your screen. Do you see the forms I can submit knowledge view? No. They will tell you, I cannot see the forms I can submit knowledge view. It is not up in the upper left-hand corner or upper right-hand corner of my screen. And now you, trying to help them, are confused. You have asked them a question. Do you see the forms I can submit knowledge you in the upper right-hand side of your screen? They have told you truthfully that they can, in fact, not see it in the upper right corner of their screen. And you're going to be confused. And you're now going to go through a round of unnecessary questions to learn at some point in the distant future that they are displaying the forms I can submit knowledge you on the lower left portion of their screen. You don't know that because you don't know how the end user has configured that workspace to show them things that they find in a more pleasing manner. It does cost some runaround in terms of providing support to your end users and trying to figure out what the heck it is that they're doing on their system. So there are upsides and downsides to this. Largely upsides, though, from the user point of view, in terms of being able to move things around. Some downsides in that it is a little more confusing. As you can see, even I'm confused because I can't figure out how in the world I can access all of the other items that are included in this, because it works differently than version 5. And quite frankly, other than demo purposes, I never use the desktop workspace. I create my own workspaces, but about which more in due course. So the desktop workspace is a thing that exists and you can use it as you desire. I am, however, going to turn it off, but we are going to talk about this next thing here: clear default desktop layout. So if you are concerned that your users have, overly configured their workspaces, well, you can fix that because you can clear their default desktop layout and force them back into the normal workspace that you have created. And in fact, you can keep that turned on so that every time you make a change, it will force whatever change you've made onto the end users so that their workspace models the workspace that you have created, or the workspace configuration that you've created, and you kind of force them to do that. I'm not sure what the purpose is for A, using both the desktop interface, and B, clearing the default desktop layout, because you're basically eliminating the one main reason why the desktop layout is convenient to end users. So if you're just going to force them to comply with your layout, why turn it on at all? Just keep the old workspace layout and you'll be a happy campers. And if users don't know what they're missing, they don't know what they're missing. So you never have to worry about it. Now, this is one of the things I dislike about the default desktop layout, is that it does this and it takes me to places I don't want to go. So we are going to go back to admin profile so we can open up things full screen instead of a new window in the desktop layout. That is one of the things about the desktop layout. When you open something, it opens it up in a new window inside the desktop layout. It opens up in like that new little window portlet, which is kind of cool, but also kind of irritating. So we are not going to use the desktop interface for the workspace for this one. Now note that this does not have that eliminate default desktop. Most likely because I keep turning it on and turning it off, and I haven't made any changes. I haven't changed my default. And by the way, as an end user, you can save your default layout, which is why that checkbox, which is missing here, because I don't have any default layout saved, but it's missing here because, but as we saw a few minutes ago, you can check that. Do I have it open? No, I had it open here. So this is where the configuration is. So the checkbox doesn't appear until end users have actually used and began saving default layouts for their own workspaces. Then the button appears so that you can turn that, you can erase those default layouts. So it's a dynamic property, which is why we're not seeing it here, because I keep turning this workspace on and off. When I turn it off, it deletes all of the property settings for end users. You can set up some background styling from workspaces. We have all of these pictures for you to be able to set a background for your workspace if you want to. It's largely only applicable to the desktop workspace because in a traditional workspace, there is no background. You have portlets, and those portlets take up the entire screen, so the background would not be visible. So background styling is only applicable to the desktop interface. In that sense, these things are fine. It doesn't really matter which of these pictures you use. I dislike these pictures because so many of them are in a color range that if I was trying to put text or something on top of them would make them extraordinarily difficult to read. For a workspace, it's not a problem because these are the workspace portlets open up in their own window, and that window occludes the background. So if you want to use a pretty background of some sort, knock yourself out, but it only really works for the desktop interface. You can choose depending on the image that you pick, because you can, in fact, I believe there is a setting. Nope, thought there was. I thought there was a setting to be able to use your own images, but that only is on forms, not on the workspace. So the different images are differently sized and styled. And you do have to account for people that are looking at your workspace on a smaller screen versus people who are looking at it on a big 32-inch widescreen monitor or whatever. So this drop down enables you to determine how you want those images displayed, whether you just want the image to go into the center, which means that there might be white space along the outside of that image on larger monitors. You can cover, which will just expand the image to fill whatever space it is in the workspace automatically, irrespective of their screen size, or you can tile the image. The default tile mode tiles from left to right, top to bottom, and it just repeats the image as many times as it needs to along the width and down the as many rows as it needs to. And then I can simply tile on the x-axis vertically or the y-axis horizontally on the screen, various types of tiling. Cover is the default. That's generally fine for most systems. It is a background. It should be covered by portlet windows, so users should rarely see it, but it does give you a little extra flash of color in the background. You can also set the opacity level as well to make it completely opaque, or to make it completely invisible. That's entirely up to you. Again, only works on the desktop interface. You can set the order on which it shows. I have not realized that this still says toolbar. What it should probably say is menu, but it does allow you to sort items in order. This is kind of tricky here. In the old version of Process Director, so let's reopen that again, because we do have to talk about UI differences. So let's open up the legacy server once again. So up here at the top of the screen, these are tabs. You don't necessarily expect them to be in any specific order. You expect them to be perhaps in the order of utility or what have you, but these are just tabs at the top of the screen. And you're just going to read them left to right. I think when you switch over to a menu-based version of that, alphabetical order is your best shot. And so you would not want to set the relative order here. So I think my relative order on all of these is set to 0. And since it is, and this is a menu, see AD, AU, UI, US, it's all in alphabetical order based on the name of the tab. That's fine. This is probably, if you're in 6.1, probably the best default option. Just do not set the relative order on toolbar. Just let the menu work the way it's supposed to work. Make it alphabetical. People, when they see this drop down, are going to intuitively understand where to look for things if it is in alphabetical order. If you start changing this relative order, that's going to get confusing. It's generally a bad practice. On the legacy server, nobody really expects this to be in alphabetical order. In fact, it's tabs, so they really don't know what order it's supposed to be in, or even if there is supposed to be in order. So if you're in version 5, well, then great. You can set the relative order on Toolbar so that the things that you think are more important to the end users will show up in position number 1. And as we move to the right horizontally on the screen, then we'll see progressively less and less important tabs across the top of the screen. It makes sense with the tabbed interface. This property makes less sense in a menu-based interface where I think normal alphabetical sorting is probably your best option in terms of making it less confusing for your end users. So workspace icon. Now, this is where we were talking about earlier about this navigation bar. This is going to, well, actually, that's not it. We have to get down to that later. That's for the actual navigation buttons. Sorry. This is for the icon itself for the workspace. Although similar things apply here, as will apply in a second when we talk about the navigation bar. I can set an icon for my workspace. Now, as you can see, I haven't done that for anything but the auto claims workspace. So it has that icon of the two dark blue cars. You can set an icon for a workspace if you want to. Not sure how useful it is in menus, but that's up to you. We do have the ability, if we're going to create an icon and set an icon, as to how we want to display that workspace in either the menu bar or the top level tab bar in version 5. I can show it with just text, just the icon, or both the text and the icon. If you're going to show it with text, it's not specifically necessary that you show a workspace tooltip. I mean, I have text. It says content list. I think when I click it, it's going to show me the content list. If, however, I was to say, well, I only want to show the icon because, well, I don't know why you would do that in a menu-based version of it. Obviously, on the legacy side, whether, again, you have limited horizontal space. Actually, if you have too many workspaces, it will default down to the next workspace or the next row, and it will just increase this. And I think I can actually demo that to you on the demo server. Let's take a look at it. That's customer stuff. That is demo right there. So we're going to look at our demo server where we have a lot of weird things happening for various prospects and various customers. And if we go into, that's admin profile. So this looks great. This is version 6. So I can't actually show you what happens because I was thinking I was going to see the tab bar, and we have all of these workspaces. And with all of these workspaces, in version 5, this took up way more horizontal space than was available to us. And so what would happen at the top of the screen is it would just show a second row of workspace tabs. It's kind of ugly. Much better here in the menu, but I was expecting to, I don't know why I was expecting to see version 5, but I was. So if you're in version 5, you have some limited space up there at the top, and determining whether or not you want to show icons or text is probably important in that context. In the context of version 6, it's far less important because everything is menu based. We don't have those horizontal space worries and whatnot. So I wouldn't worry about it. But you can have a workspace tooltip if you were just showing the icon, and I would certainly recommend that you do that. I think probably in version 6, text or text and icon are the only two options that you need to consider. I think simply showing an icon in this drop-down menu is a waste of time. There's no reason to do that because we don't have the horizontal space question that we have to deal with anymore. So I simply would never use icon for setting up my workspace display. I would always either be text or text and icon, because my real concern here is vertical space concerns. And I'm going to need a fairly large number of workspaces before I run out of vertical space on a regular 1080 vertical screen. User assignment. This is not specifically necessary if I have this property at the top that we checked. If I have that checked, it's specifically not necessary on a new system. Presumably on a new system, you are going to configure this, and I probably should have talked about this earlier, but on a new system, what you're probably going to want to do rather than create a new workspace like this, although you may want to create a new workspace like this and leave the admin profile alone. That's probably better advice. Don't edit the admin profile, except to go into it and be sure that this checkbox is unchecked. What you should probably do on a new system is, first thing, create your own user profile workspace that's going to be your generic workspace. Sure, there are parts of what shows up in the workspace that we give you, the user profile workspace, that you're going to want to copy. But for the most part, probably the best practice would be, very first thing, I get Process Director installed, really before I do anything, and certainly before I add any new users, that you just create this new workspace and ensure that it's set so that new users are automatically added to it. Now, that'll work on all of your new users. I have a mature system. All of the users that are ever going to be on the system are already on this system. So in my case, turning this on doesn't help me because no one is going to see it. On a mature system, if I have existing users, I am going to have to assign either users or groups. We do not recommend assigning users directly to a workspace. I kind of do it routinely on this system because it is a training system, and I just add myself because I don't want anybody else to see my workspace. I'm the only one that's ever going to use it. I live in a little different atmosphere than a production environment usually lives in. So by default, we want to assign groups to workspaces. That way, as people are added to or removed from their user groups, the workspaces to which they have access will simply change automatically. What you do not want to get into the business of doing as a system administrator is assigning users directly to objects, which, by the way, is true at the process level, but is doubly true at the administrative level. Now, I'm lucky. I don't have a lot of users here, and the users that I do have are mostly notional test users. So I could manage this type of access to Process Director simply by accessing it, at the user level. But I know some of you out there have, I don't know, 10, 15, 20,000 users on your system. In an organization of that size, you will be doing this every single day, adding and removing users. That is going to be far too painful to ever deal with. So by default, you are always going to want to assign groups to a workspace. So I'm in the admin group, so I can assign my group to this workspace to give me access to it. And indeed, everyone in the admin group will have access to it. As that group membership changes, access to this workspace will change. That will eliminate the need for you as an administrator to constantly be editing this workspace. You don't want to do that because workspace editing is tedious. So assign via groups. It's 11:09 and we haven't even completed this. I'm spending a lot of time talking on the management level and not on the basic, here's how you create things level, which is probably more helpful to you in terms of, since most of you are relatively long time administrators in Process Director. As I said previously, there are two main elements to any workspace, the navigation menu and the home page windows, and this is where those are configured. At the very bottom, you have those tabs. The top navigation button tab enables me to set my home page. So we will go to, let's see, we'll give myself access to the task list. It's way here below the screen. And this is where I can set the icon and the tooltip for the task list, for any other thing that I want to set. Task list is a built-in object, which means it exists and has its own rich, free, and independent life. So I don't think I would put the task list in. I'm just sort of notionally adding things. So we have task list, forms I can submit. We have that. We have the data flow analyzer. Those are all built-in objects in Process Director. In addition to those built-in objects, we have this set of objects right here that have these little parentheses around them. These are content list objects. So these are the objects that I create on the system. So if I want to give people the ability to click on a form and open it, just as I have the data analyzer in the previous one, I can pick the form that I want them to open, and I get something a little bit different. Now, up here at the very top with the data flow analyzer, I just have some basic properties. In this, I'll just call it DFA for data flow analyzer. I'll set an icon. I don't really care much about what icons I set. So I'm just going to pick some at random just to have an icon, but I am going to add a tooltip, and I will call it the data flow analyzer. Now, when I add one of the content list objects, I have this extra property over here because I've got to specify the content list object that I want to use. Now, I'm still going to need to set an icon, and I'm still going to need to set its text. So I don't know what form I'm going to pick. So we'll just call this some form, and I can go in and find the form that I want. Let's pick a form that I did today on a tech support ticket. So that's my array attachments form, and I can build out as many of these items as I need. I'm not going to keep repeating it. I'm pretty sure that you have the idea, but now I've got some navigation menu items up here at the top, at least two. So that's the first major thing I need to do. The second major thing I need to do is determine what the end user is going to see. Here is where our paths begin to diverge. If I'm just going to want to use built-in Process Director objects, at minimum, there's really only two things that the normal end user in a super generic workspace needs to see. They need to see their task list. So you need to give them access to that. And they probably need to see forms I can submit, because this will just show them a list of all of the forms they can submit. I would also, we have this radio button list here that shows you some different screen configurations of the various portlets. So I'm just going to pick two portlets side by side, one of which shows the task list, the other one of which shows forms I can submit. At this page, I've got a workspace. It's generic enough so that when I create new users, they are going to be added to the system. New users only. Existing users are not going to be magically added to the system just because I create the workspace. So because I'm on an older system, I've got to assign some groups to this system so that we can see it. So, well, in particular, I can see it whenever I demo it. And then if I'm just going to use the default workspace functionality, I'm going to want to see at least two things for an end user, the task list and the forms I can submit. They don't really need much else. There are these advanced options here, which I'm not sure we care much about, but you do have the ability of setting the URL for the logo that you want to use. And also, if you click that logo, a URL link that you want to set to open up in a new browser window if they happen to click the logo image that you've picked. You really never use those advanced options, but they do exist. Actually, I do know some users that do it. But okay, fine. I have a basic workspace. It's not perhaps the workspace that I want, but it's good enough for now. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit OK. Now I should be assigned to the webinar workspace. It's not showing up here. So I'm just going to switch workspaces, and I was hoping just switching workspaces would update me. There we go. I had to update the entire page. Now that I've updated the entire page, I have access to the webinar workspace. So when I click on that, I can see my webinar workspace. Now, from this point on, every new user in the system, when their account gets created, will automatically be added to this workspace. That's great. We're happy that that's happening. I don't now have to go in and continually manage this workspace because I know that every user now is going to have access to their task list. They're going to have access to all the forms that they're authorized to submit. They'll be able to look at the data flow analyzer. Why I would allow them to look at that, I'm not entirely sure, but that's what I've said they can do, so they can do that now. And they also have access can I close the data flow analyzer? I think my Zoom thing is in the way. My Zoom thing is in the way. I want that tab closed. All right. Oh, there we go. It is the tab. Fine. I can close the tab. I'm not sure how that worked. Oh, and I have some form. So apparently the data flow analyzer opens up in a new tab, and the form opens up obviously in a new window. Great. I've got a workspace. For a normal system, this would be the one that I would give access to all users on the system. And now that I have a workspace, anytime I make a change to this workspace, it's going to be immediately shown to all of my system users, which is, maybe a good thing because I think I want to show a different workspace than this. Which gets us into the topic of dashboards. So we're going to go back to the admin profile. Actually, we're going to go ahead and turn on our content list. There are some drawbacks to workspaces. They only exist in IT admin. You can only access them if you're either a system admin or a configuration admin, which means if I have some non-generic application-specific workspaces, somebody's got to manage them. So either I, as the system administrator, I'm going to have to be responsible anytime an implementer says, hey, I need a change to the workspace. I've made a change to the application. That change necessitates a workspace change. Well, now you're going to have to go in and either do it yourself as the system administrator, or you are going to have to go into user administration, find that person. We'll use Diana for this example. You're going to need to find that person. Diana's already a system administrator. Let's find someone else for an example. Let's try Eric. Eric is not a system administrator. Fine, but we're going to make him a partial system administrator. We are going to make them a system configuration admin. When you're a system configuration admin, I do have access to the IT admin area but I only have access to one part of the IT admin area, and that would be the configuration section. And so you think, well, what's the harm in that? I'll give Eric access to the system configuration admin, and you'll also have to give them access to admin profile, or at least give them access to a profile that has a link to the configuration section so they can open it. Actually, in the new UI, they'll just see configuration show up in the settings menu. That will happen to them automatically. Sorry, mine is still back in version 5. In version 6, we take care of this for you. You don't have to configure anything. They'll automatically see the settings menu. The only thing they'll be able to access is the configuration menu item. None of this other stuff will show up for them. Okay, so you think to yourself, well, that's great. I'll just make him a system config administration. What harm could that possibly cause? They can now go into workspaces, and they can now access workspaces, and they can edit their own workspace. That sounds cool. Guess what else they can do? They can also go in and change your permissions and change who gets assigned to what permission. They might get to look into partitions and assign themselves to partitions that you don't want them assigned to. They can also go in and change all your global knowledge views. And we've seen this happen with people who said, we'll make people a system administration config, and they sit there and they're building an application and they say, I don't like the way the regular task list works. I'm going to change it. And they go to global knowledge views and they open up the task list and they change it. And then we get a tech support ticket that says only users of this application can see their task list. The task list isn't showing up for anyone else. Yes, that's because somebody went in and changed your global knowledge view. And now the only task list that works for anyone is a task list that shows tasks from that specific application. So you're giving people access to a lot more of your system than you think you are, simply by making them a system configuration admin. So you may not want to do that, which means we're back to you as the system administrator are the person who is going to have to make changes to every single workspace in the system. Now, look, if all you have are generic workspaces, you don't care. You've made the workspace. It works fine. Occasionally you have to go in and add something to it, or, point a button to a different form. It's minor. It's trivial. But if you have a lot of workspaces, especially a lot of application-based workspaces, well, there are certain things that you have to do. For example, anytime that somebody makes a change to the application and they need to change to the workspace, you're going to have to make that change to the workspace. Not only are you going to have to make that change to the workspace, but after the new application version is imported into your production system, you're going to need to export this workspace from your dev system, and you're going to need to import the workspace into your production system after the application designer has imported their application into the production system. Although if you're the one who's importing both from dev to production and your implementers don't do that, then this is just an extra import that you're going to have to do. Because remember, if I have a workspace that is directly associated with specific items in that application, knowledge views, forms, whatever, then when I import that new application, I'm going to have to also, after that application is imported and the objects exist, I'm now going to have to go in and import a workspace for it too. So I'm now going to have to do 2 separate imports to import that application. On a large system, this might get tedious. So we have dashboards. The dashboard object, and since we're covering so many things here, I didn't actually add workspaces and dashboards here. So let me just go dashboards. Workspaces and dashboards, it's in workspaces and dashboards. There we go. So I have a sample dashboard here. I used it the last time. The thing about a dashboard is that you can build them in the content list. And just like a form or a knowledge view. They are a content list object that can be edited by anyone who has access to the content list. If you have an application level dashboard, an application level workspace, the best practice is to force the person who needs that workspace to make their application work, is to force them to create a dashboard and to build the UI for their application in a dashboard. In the workspace itself, the only widget we're going to have is that dashboard widget. We have an example of that running from our advanced UI thing that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. We'll take a look at that in a minute. This enables you to force the UI creation on the application designer. They have to build the UI. It gets included as part of the application's import. It's just another content list object, so it just gets imported with the application. All the workspace does is display the dashboard. That means that if there needs to be a change to the UI and the entire UI is in the dashboard, then the person who can make that change to the UI is the application designer themselves. You, as an administrator, don't have to be involved in that process at all, although depending on how your organization works, you may be the person that exports it from dev and imports it into production. But you don't have to worry about the workspace. You don't have to change the workspace. In fact, the workspace should never change. All of the items that are going to be shown in that workspace. So in this particular case, this workspace shows me a couple of really simple things. If we run it, it shows me the processes in error knowledge view at the top, and it shows me my task list at the bottom. As you can see, this knowledge view here, I did not upgrade to the version 6.6 UI, but other than that, that's what I have. Oh, and I've got this clock here because, time is important, I guess. I've got a button that is supposed to open the forms I submit knowledge view, but obviously is not configured to do so. And I've got another button to open up the PDF conversion form, but that is configured. And it does, in fact, open up my PDF conversion form. So I can theoretically see this knowledge view and I can open and submit this form. I now have a UI that works. It's ugly the way that I've designed it, but it works. If I need to make a change to this UI, well, it's a content list object. So my designer can just go back to the content list object and rearrange these objects, make whatever changes they feel are necessary to make this work. For example, I don't know why task list wouldn't be at the top of the screen. So for me, it will be. Let's move my clock over a little bit. We'll drop my processes in error at the bottom. This is always going to be short, so I can make that short because there's only 2, I think, on the system. And I have all these widgets that all I have to do is drag them on to the screen. It's already 11:30, so we're not going to get into a lot of detail about how this works, but we will talk about some of the main points. I've got a whole bunch of widgets that I can place on the screen. So there's a form widget, there's a K-view widget, there's a report widget. So I can drop all of these onto the screen and resize them. So if I wanted to see a chart, I'm sure I have a chart somewhere on the system, and I just want to show a chart widget right here. I can do that. I can, size it to whatever size I want to size it to. And once the widget's there and I've got it sized, there is a settings icon in the upper right-hand corner that if I click, will open up all of my settings. So at the top, let's just call it pie chart. If I want to show the title bar, I actually have the title bar turned off, so it won't show me a title bar. So there's that. So I don't need to change the title unless I want to show the title bar, which I'm going to do because I've already gone through all the trouble of changing the title. I can refresh some widgets on a number of seconds basis. you don't use it much. If you set it to 0, it just won't refresh. If you set it to any other number, it will refresh at that number. Unless your data has a really high degree of currency, there's no great reason to refresh, but you certainly can. If you want a special CSS class to be displayed, I know a lot of you use your own custom CS classes. That's fine. You can specify a CSS class. And if it is being shown, now this is I'm trying to, not liking the way that that's working. There we go. Finally learning how to scroll. If this chart is being shown in a traditional workspace, I can choose what portlet I want it to appear in that workspace. So, some charts have click-throughs, and you can define where you want that chart to appear. If this is going to open up a workspace to show that chart, I can specify what portlet I want it to show up in. Honestly, not super useful in most use cases, but it exists and you can do that. And then I have choose chart, which allows me to go in and find charts. So since I have a charts and dashboards folder and I have charts, dashboard, I know I have a pie chart somewhere. There we go. Totals pie. So there's my pie chart. And I can apply that pie chart. Notice that it's a pie chart and it automatically changed that icon. Some other things that I can do if I want to select, every time I select an item, it turns blue and it will stay blue until I deselect it. And I can make 2 items blue. And when I do, I have access to the bottom to alignment for those widgets. So if I want to align the top of those widgets, I can do that. I can align to the left. I can align to the right. Line top, line bottom. Well, now I've hidden the widget. So I need to deselect that widget and move it. Now I can deselect this widget from the bottom. It's so small, I hid it. The other thing that we can do on a single widget is you can set it to full height, or full width, or 20% width, or 20% height once you have selected. Now I've selected it, it's moved it to the back. So let's reconfigure here. And so now I have a different dashboard. Got some new items, and because it's content list items, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter for the workspace configuration itself, because the workspace is only going to show this dashboard, and I've made all the changes I need to make. I guess I can run and test it just to be sure the thing works. And it does. It shows me my pie chart. Now, this is what I see because I made the header visible, the title visible. This is what it looks like. And it also gives me this button to be able to expand it to full size if I want, and then unexpand it. I think it's pretty intuitive how to create a workspace. You just drop widgets on the screen and the widgets magically appear, and you can see all of the things that you need to see inside that dashboard. Once I have the dashboard, then obviously what I want to do is I only want to show that dashboard as part of the workspace. So going back to workspace configuration, we actually want to go into configuration itself. Let's actually take a look at the UI sample workspace where I actually have something like that. The homepage window is only set to a single homepage window. And I'm showing a partition dashboard, and it's that dashboard that we looked at 2 weeks ago, my main dashboard. That's the only UI. Now, I do have some navigation buttons. I have a home page, I have an IT request and an HR request that show up. If I was in a normal workspace, I would need those. They would be important. I don't necessarily need them in this particular workspace, but I have gone ahead and configured them. But this workspace, when run, as we saw earlier, this UI sample workspace, now it provides me with the UI. I think it's a nice UI. It's certainly a BP Logix UI in terms of color scheme. Now, any change that I make as far as the dashboard goes, just automatically gets reflected when I import the application. The UI now is literally just built into the application itself. I, as a system administrator, don't have to worry at all about any workspaces that are associated with it, because I'm never actually going to make a change to the workspace unless, as in this case, I do need to change one of these two items. I've thrown them in there. They're the same items that are part of the HR request, a new IT request. But any other changes that take place inside the application itself. I mean, technically, as I said earlier, I don't need to have any of these navigation items in here for this workspace. What I would expect is for my application designer to provide me with the appropriate links to, open forms that need to be submitted and the various knowledge views that we need to see. Not much to see, but the knowledge views are turning a record. And I don't have to worry about it as an administrator. And so I think not worrying about things as an administrator is an important consideration. Now, whenever I have this sort of application level workspace, and I have forced my application designer to be the one that creates the UI for it, it's made my job a lot easier. But I do have to figure out who's going to access this thing. So to be able to actually see this dashboard, again, I've got to go into configuration. I've got to go here to my UI sample workspace in this case. And as you can see, I'm the only person who sees this workspace. I told you that's how my system works, so that I don't force my workspaces on whoever else is on the system, although I think now largely I'm the only person who ever logs in. So I don't necessarily need to do this anymore, but you're going to need to assign this workspace to the appropriate groups, presumably groups that that have access to that application, that can submit forms for that application. So one of the reasons why I added the IT request and the HR request is those are the two forms that this application allows people to submit. So that's why I added the navigation buttons for them. I didn't need to. I simply could have just left that blank or just thrown in a home page, which is just refresh that dashboard essentially, and let the navigation be handled inside the dashboard itself. Presumably, when I import the application into the system, a specific group or groups is going to have access to that application. It's probably going to be set up in the content list somewhere in terms of the permissions that you use. So the best practice would be to assign the groups to this workspace that match the group permissions that were set for the application itself. So if that application is only available to users in the HR group, then I would need to go into this workspace, go to assign groups, and be sure that the HR group had access to that workspace and could see it, so that this, along with the application, is available to them. One thing about workspaces and user assignment is if you're going to do this stuff at the application level, you have to be sure that access to the workspace, which provides the UI, matches the permission setting that is available in the content list, or that you've set in the content list. So this enables us to ensure that we are comparing apples to apples in terms of the UI and the applications that are available to the end users. The other nice thing about dashboards, though, is that sure, it's kind of cool that I can show them as the homepage of my UI. That's cool. But remember, they're content list objects. So technically, in my general UI, let's go back there. That's not where I wanted to go. I wanted to go back to configuration, and I wanted to go, well, let's just go back to user profile, since that's the one that I use. So I have all these navigation buttons in my user profile, including this button that was currently not used, but is about to be. Because the other thing that I can do is I can say, all right, let's go to partition dashboard, and we are going to call this IT/HR requests, and we'll give it a tooltip, IT/HR requests. And now we are going to point to training webinar, archive, advanced UI, completed app, UI elements, main. There is my dashboard. And we're going to hit OK here, and we're going to update that. And now we're going to swap over to our user profile workspace, which did not get refreshed. So let's refresh my screen. Now I've got this IT/HR request button. Note, when my mouse hovers over it, a tooltip appears. Yay, it's a beautiful tooltip. Very nice and legible. It's the only thing I think I have a tooltip set for. Best practice, use tooltips so that when people are navigating, they see tooltips. The tooltips can be more informative than mine. I'm not sure how useful it is for my tooltip to explicitly just repeat the text that's in the tool itself. Your mileage may vary how you want to do that, but you should be using tooltips. I should really have all of these navigation items set to use tooltips, but my IT/HR request is. And when I click it, look what it does. Now I'm in the user profile workspace. Okay, this is cool because now I have a single workspace that is my generic workspace that gives me access to all of this stuff. And one of the things that I've just added is my IT/HR requests, because dashboards are content list objects. I can link to them in other workspaces. So I don't necessarily need to have this UI sample workspace. In my case, I've got a dashboard. The dashboard has links to the two forms that it can open, HR request and IT request. Once I open and submit these forms, they're going to do the things that they're supposed to do. So there's my HR request. I'm going to go ahead and close it without saving. Here's a new IT request. I'm going to go ahead and close without saving. Well, I'm going to submit it. Then I'm going to close without saving. And then I'm going to refresh my task list. And look, I've got 4 tasks. Everything I need is here. If I want to see my active IT requests, I can click on the appropriate link on the sidebar. Everything works. Because I've encapsulated the UI in this dashboard, I can now add this dashboard to my main workspace. So this solves the additional problem of having to import a new workspace every time I create a new application with a new dashboard. If I want to give users access to it, there is going to have to be some level of workspace change to it, but it's a one-time deal. If I add this dashboard to my general end user workspace, everything they need is here. I can then just add it as a navigation item, and I never have to worry about it again. Because once I've added it the one time, and there's always going to be that one-time task of adding the new the new item, but it's a lot easier just to add another navigation button to an existing workspace than it is to have a whole workspace that needs to be, reconfigured, exported, re-imported. This just makes your life a little bit easier by adding it to the generic workspace. So I could have as many of the applications as I needed as long as they had their own desktop UI. I don't even need a standalone workspace. All I have to do is just link the dashboard. That UI is now just built into Process Director because it's built into the dashboard. So makes my life as an administrator a lot easier. If they make future changes, again, just as if I had it, as if it was, its own workspace, if they make changes again, who cares? As soon as I import those changes, it's automatically going to be updated in my user profile workspace because it's a content list object. And updates are, immediately apparent whenever I make them. So your primary concern is, how do I make life easier for my end users? Secondary concern as an administrator, how do I manage the system that I am building? So I guess I would say in closing, there are just a couple of important things to remember about workspaces or dashboards. Sure, it's important to know how they're configured, but if you want to really get into the details of that, check out the documentation. That's all. Everything is explained there in terms of configuration. From the administrative point of view, it's the best practices that matter. So have a generic dashboard for all users. When possible, make edits to that dashboard. Try to give users as few workspaces as possible. Ensure that you do workspace assignment by group and not by individual user. To the extent that you can, try to have dashboards provide the UI for specific applications rather than building your own new workspace at the application level. Try to keep your workspaces as generic as they can be. Only create specific application level workspaces if there is a specific need to do so. And if someone tells you there's a specific need to do so, at least do some due diligence to determine if what they're saying is, this is what I want you to do. But if you can do, as we just did, something like adding a dashboard to an existing generic workspace, that's probably a better idea. Again, it's not always possible. If I have an application that I only want HR people to use, I'm probably going to have a functional specific application. I've kind of gotten away from talking about that since the beginning, but yes, as a best practice, create functional workspaces for specific users when they need their data segregated out from everybody else. So there are a couple of areas where this is almost always true when it comes to building workspaces. One is HR because of privacy concerns. Another is patient or student data because of HIPAA and FERPA concerns. So people who do not need direct access to student data should not have it. And so data that contains FERPA for education or HIPAA data for life sciences, those are probably going to need their own specific workspaces because you have to segregate access to them. Those are the three major ones, I think, although some IT stuff in terms of maybe SOC compliance and things like that, you probably only want to have a small subset of people have access to. Certainly any sort of proprietary data or processes, these manufacturing processes, other trade secrets, that may need to be segregated off into their own workspaces as well. So you do have the demand for certain types of information because of security requirements that surround it. You do have the requirement of maintaining that in a secure fashion. Workspaces do help with that so that only a small number of people who have access to it. But outside of that, your concentration should be on creating sort of generic workspaces that you can add access to additional functionality to that workspace rather than constantly creating new workspaces, because you want to make the UI experience as efficient as possible for your end users, and you want to minimize the number of workspaces to which those end users have access. And in each workspace, you want to maximize, to the extent possible, the range of activities that your end users can pursue from that single generic workspace. So this is kind of one of those weird half and half ones, sort of half best practices, half how do I manage this stuff, and admin concerns, and sort of half this is how you actually do stuff. But I think that is all I have for you today. I guess it better be. It's 11:50. I got to shut up. Have a great week. We'll talk to you next time. So long.